Hello. So this video is a follow-up to one that I just did about the difference between the dynamics in a version of a Skrillex song called F That from the iTunes version compared to the official YouTube video. And the YouTube version has more dynamics and I think it sounds better as a result. And if you haven't seen that video, you might want to check it out before you watch this because it will probably make more sense. I've had a great reaction to the video. People seem to like it. And in general, they agreed with me, but there were a couple of comments that were made which I think were fair. The first one was that the sound effects that have been added to the video are actually quite distracting and make it quite difficult to compare the two versions. I certainly agree with that. With hindsight, it would have been better to use a different section of the video. And the other comment is that listening on a high quality system, you may prefer the video soundtrack, the more dynamic version, but actually the CD version seems to work better when you listen to it on the little speaker on a smartphone or an iPod. And I tried that for myself, and actually I kind of agreed with it. But my immediate reaction was that that wasn't because of the difference in dynamics between the two versions, it was because of an EQ difference, the relative balance of the high and low frequencies in particular. But of course that's just my opinion, my instant reaction, and I thought I would test it out. And so in this video, I'm going to demonstrate that to you and also use a section of the video that has fewer sound effects, so it's easier to compare the way the music sounds. And to match the EQ of the two versions, I'm going to use an automatic EQ matching plugin. I don't normally use these in mastering, but I think in this case, it's a quick way of doing it and maybe removes the idea that I'm trying to prejudice the result in any way. So I'm going to start off by analyzing the CD. So I'll play a section of that into the analyzer. And then I'll play the same section from the video soundtrack as the target. Now I'm going to click the button to equalize the video to sound like the CD, and we can see the EQ shape that the analyzer has chosen. And now I'm going to move that processing onto the video clip itself, because we only want it applied to one. At the moment it's across the master output. So then I will disable the original one and make sure that this one is doing what we want. So now we can compare those two examples with a matched EQ. And immediately we can hear a problem, which is that the EQ change has changed the level. It's boosted the level of the video version, so it's no longer a fair comparison. And we could fix that by measuring them with a loudness meter and matching up the levels again as I did in the first video. But for speed, I'm going to use my perception plugin. So I'm just going to enable the controller over here, and I'm going to add the perception source. And that's going before the EQ change, so that's measuring the level before. And I'm also going to add perception source to the CD version. In this case, there's no processing on the CD version, so there's not going to be level change measured, but perception will still balance the playback loudness of both clips to be the same so that we can make a fair comparison. So now let's play a section of the song and let perception do the measuring. Balance that, and then we'll do the same with the video. And perception has automatically detected that a different clip is playing, and in this case it's showing that the EQ change has introduced a level shift of about 2.5 dBs. So now that's balanced, and we should be able to flick between the two and compare the sound level matched and EQ matched. that's not a perfect match, but I think you'll agree it's a lot closer. And I think you'll also find, if you listen to this on a mobile device, you'll find the differences between those two versions much harder to pick out than before. In other words, the EQ change is making the biggest difference to how well this mix translates onto a tiny little speaker in an iPod or a mobile phone, rather than the change in dynamics. The need for listening on tiny little devices, mobile devices, is often used as an excuse for crushing the life out of recordings in the way that we see so often these days. And in my experience, it just doesn't stand up. And I've written a blog post before discussing this point in a lot more detail. There are still going to be differences between these two caused by all the processing that's been happening between the two. But hopefully this shows you even more clearly and with fewer sound effects that at best, the extra dynamic crush isn't achieving anything useful, and at worst, it's actually making the CD version sound worse. And one interesting thing for me is that the EQ is bringing out a lot more of that distortion that I commented on in the bass sound for this song. And that shows yet again the importance of level matching and the importance of EQ matching when you make comparisons like this, because I'll be honest, I blamed all of that on the dynamic processing before, and I think some of that emphasis is due to the EQ that's being used. CD still sounds more distorted to me, but it's an interesting subtlety to notice. And to finish off, I will just play you this comparison where you can hear the difference over that transition between the two versions. So we'll start off with the video version. Now the same thing from the CD. And exactly as we found in the first video, for me, the CD version, when the music stops and then starts again, it just comes back in. There's no kind of increased feeling of intensity or drama in there, whereas the extra dynamics in the video version just allow it to step up a notch. The contrast isn't as great as it was later on in the song. And again, if you want to hear that comparison, head back to that earlier video that I did, but it does get a bit more confusing because of the sound effects that are in there. But hopefully you can hear what's going on better in this section without the sound effects, and that helps convince you that what you're hearing is not because of the sound effects, it's due to the reduction in the dynamics of the CD version in the music. Even EDM sounds better with more dynamics. So, I hope you found that useful or interesting. My name is Ian Shepherd. Head over to productionadvice.co.uk for more videos and posts about all aspects of recording, mixing and mastering music. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you'd like to see future updates, and thanks for listening.